Welcome to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. It's the show geared toward keeping you up to speed with the latest auto news, event coverage, and expert industry insight. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Avery and John Kraman.
Hey, and welcome to another On the Move. My name is Matt Avery, and joining me is co-host John Kraman, lead TV commentator for Mecum Auctions on NBCSN. John, we've got a very special show today because in segment 2, we have two guests making a major news announcement about a very special vehicle. We have Mecum floor reporter Bill Stevens join us, as well as Grainne Owen, founder and president of Curing Kids Cancer, and together they're going to be sharing some exciting news about the Restomod 1967 Kendall Custom Mustang, which is crossing the Mecum Kissimmee block at no reserve and all going to charity. So a very special vehicle, very special story. And then in segment 3, we are going to be diving deep into the recent red hot results of Mecum Dallas. So a lot to get into. And speaking of which, a lot coming up. Mecum has its sights set on October, where we are taking over the month.
You know, the success of the Dallas auction is really going to put a lot of momentum into what we're fondly referring to as the October takeover. That's 3 auctions in 1 month, and they literally are back to back. We're going to be in Las Vegas, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Chicago, Schaumburg. This will be the first triple header in Mecum history, Matt. How's that sound?
And that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, John, you and I are always out on the road, and you've got some travels coming up, starting with you'll be headed off to the Corvette Funfest. What all will you be doing there?
Yeah, that's down in Effingham, Illinois, on the beautiful campus of Mid-America, the big Corvette and Volkswagen aftermarket suppliers. The Yeager family always puts on a fantastic party, and I will be doing a forum that I call Inside Auctions in the Collector Car Market. It'll be focused specifically, or it'll be focused very heavily, of course, on Corvettes. And then what's fun is it ends actually with a concert, an outdoor concert, with a really cool Foreigner tribute band. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I turn around from there and I head out to Connecticut to our friend Wayne Carini of Chasing Classic Cars fame. I was invited to go out to his facility, F40 Motorsports, to assist on videotaping for promotion of a very special upcoming auction to the a very special car to our Kissimmee auction, and that is the 1951 Mercury Club Coupe, done in 1953 by the Bears brothers and known as the Hero Hada Merc. And Wayne's very heavily involved with us in the promotion of that car, and him and I are going to work together to do a video on that. So I've never been out to his facility. I know him, and we've had a chance to hang out a bit, but first time I've had a chance to go out there, so that's really exciting. How about you? You've been busy too, man.
Yeah, I just got back from the 34th Annual British Car Festival, a fantastic event that takes place in the Chicago suburbs, and it brings together a wide range of British automakers. So you will see everything from Aston Martin and Jaguar, Lotus, Rolls-Royce, and Mini Cooper, and even DeLorean. All of those cars are welcome and celebrated, and I gotta say, John, the car that I was liking most this year wasn't classic. It was actually brand new. It was a 2021 Land Rover Defender 90. The 90 is the shorter wheelbase 2-door version, and I liked it because it really it smacks of that retro charm that you like so much with the Bronco for the same reason. When it comes in that 2-door, you just have really pointed out the 2-door just echoes more of that retro vibe, and it's the same thing with the 90. It just has such a great look, and you'll really appreciate this. The owners equipped it with steel wheels, which I know is how you said you would order your Bronco. But, of course, all kinds of vehicles were on display, and really just a fun gathering to celebrate some very eclectic cars.
What would you say the percentage of what you might consider to be vintage British cars versus late model? And I guess I would consider anything late model maybe 20 years or newer.
It's almost about 50-50, John,
okay.
That's kind of another part of the charm of a lot of those British car makes is that they are nostalgia, they are retro, but they also, a lot of them are still in business. And, Mini Cooper and Aston Martin, that, you can purchase a vehicle from decades ago, or you can get a more late model vehicle and you're still welcome and certainly part of the community.
Where do you head off to next?
Next stop is Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for the Pigeon Forge Fall Rod Run, taking place September 16th through the 18th. And also on site, John, is the Mecum Mobile Experience as we ramp up and get the news out about our debut into the Tennessee market at the Chattanooga auction taking place very soon, just next month. Now, John, let's turn our attention to the latest digital copy of the Mecum Magazine. Your column at the Red Line poses a question: to shift or not to shift. What were you getting at this month?
It was a little summary of my thoughts, Matt, on sort of the breakdown, the evolution into this modern era of the transition from manual transmissions in performance cars to automatics, and now, of course, to the dual clutch automated manuals. And it's really fun because out on social media, I had some really nice comments and some very friendly dialogue from folks about the pros and cons. And I talk about that a little bit there. So go to Mecum.com and you can easily check that out. Now, how about you? Free Revs is your monthly column. What did you write about?
This month, I was spotlighting the story of a special 1968 Pontiac Catalina convertible, and I encountered it at the All Pontiac weekend. It's a car show held in Crystal Lake, Illinois, put on by the Cruisin' Tigers Car Club. And I really just fell in love with the story, John, because the current caretaker is the grandson of the original owner. It's still with the original owner family. And really in the decades since his grandmother bought it, it's just become such an important, cherished part of this family story. And I really just enjoyed seeing his passion for it. And I was reminded, John, attending this event and seeing all kinds of different Pontiacs, those enthusiasts, it just seems like their fire burns hotter.
It does, and that's a really important part. You know, Matt, I'm a Pontiac guy all the way through from my dad selling new Pontiacs back in the 1960s and developing a fondness for them. I bought my 64 GTO I still own today in July of 1976, and I've been involved with a lot of these clubs and still am to this day. And I just want to do a shout out to all the Pontiac groups. So that would include the GTO guys, the Trans Am folks. They do their annual event out in Dayton, Ohio. That just thank them so much for keeping the memory alive of just how great these cars were, and even better, the memories and the stories, as you talked about. Pontiac, of course, been gone since 2010, probably never to return, but thanks to the clubs for keeping those great memories alive.
Let's turn our attention to some car news, John, because there's a lot of buzz with some electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Starting with the announcement that Tesla has claimed the title of having the fastest electric sedan go around the world-famous Nürburgring racetrack in Germany. One of their Model S Plaids, which has been just making all kinds of excitement with how fast it can go, it turned a 7-minute 35-second time, which beat the previous record of the Porsche Taycan. Now, John, with electric vehicles becoming more common, do you think this is a sign of things to come, that there's going to be more and more record attempts with electric vehicles?
Well, I think that the EVs that have a performance bent definitely will be using the Ring as a means to show off just how fast these cars are. The Plaid was actually clocked at 180 miles per hour down some of the straightaways there at the Ring. Very impressive. Now, here is what I'm going to predict. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on this. Right now, we know the Plaid is the record holder, but the Taycan probably is going to be making another attempt. And then I think we're going to see the Plaid probably come back and make another attempt, because this was the first time that the Tesla Plaid has done that. But one thing we know for sure, these cars are wicked fast. I'm going to guess, we haven't driven one yet. Hopefully we'll get a chance to. They are fast. They are fun to drive. And they, despite the fact that they're really heavy, they do handle as well. And I think that these records on these premium performance EVs proves that.
Mecum Auctions is proud to bring you On the Move with Matt Avery and John Kraman. For more on the world of collector cars, head over to Mecum.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Plans are well underway for Mecum's upcoming 2022 Kissimmee, Florida auction, where thousands of vehicles will be crossing the block, and that includes the Kendall Custom, a very special 1967 Ford Mustang GT500 Resto Mod. And we are pleased to announce that this car will be crossing at no reserve, with all proceeds going to benefit curing kids' cancer. Now, to tell this story, we have two special guests. Starting with, we have Mecum floor reporter on NBCSN, Bill Stevens, who was involved with the car's creation and build. And then we also have founder and president of the charity, Grainne Owens.
Hey, Bill, let's begin by your involvement. You have been a part of this project literally since day one. Take us back to this point. What was the genesis and the collaboration between you and Kendall on this great car?
Yeah, I had already had a relationship with Kendall prior to the Kendall Custom build. We had been doing some features at the Mecum auctions called Good Stuff Picks, and doing some Facebook posts as well. And when the Kendall Custom project came along, Julie Wright at Kendall approached me and said, we really would like to kind of document the build out at Thompson Street Customs in Denver with a series of videos. And that kind of evolved into a series called Titanium Garage. So yeah, I was able to kind of see this whole project from drawing from the sketches made by Robert Thompson Sr. and Jr., or Cope as people know him as, from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. And I have not had that kind of opportunity very many times in the past to be involved in such an enormous project from soup to nuts. So that's basically how it began. And boy, with each succeeding video that we produced and each succeeding step of the way, it was just fascinating to see how a project like this came together.
Well, the videos are very well done and fascinating. We're going to remind our listeners, go ahead and go to titaniumgarage.com to watch the series. Bill, I know that when this got started, they had made the decision early on to use a contemporary 5-liter Ford Coyote engine, but with a sub well under 1,000 horsepower rating on a relatively mildly built Ford Coyote V8, you gave your influence, and it really did work out. Tell us what happened there.
Well, the project had been well underway. The Dynacorn body had been mated to the Roadster shop chassis, and it was beginning to turn into a real car. The Coyote engine had just been dropped in pretty much so that they could do some fabrication work. And one day I was just standing there looking at the Coyote in there, 435 horsepower, give or take, right out of the crate, and there had been a few upgrades made to it. But I began to think about the other high-end resto mods and pro touring cars that were being built, and it seemed like the standard of currency for cars like that was somewhere around 550, 600, 800, something like that. And so I said to both Robert Thompson Sr. and Jr., I said, I think maybe we're a little bit short on the horsepower. What do you guys think? And they said, well, nothing wrong with more horsepower. And I said, well, yeah, now you're singing my mantra. So I said, what if we hung a couple of turbochargers on this engine? What do you think? Could we get 1,000 out of it? And they said, well, we just happen to know a guy. It's the old, hey, I know a guy story. And they did know a gentleman right down the street, not far from them, who VI Engineering is the name of it, in Denver, that mounted the twin Garrett G25 660 turbos on that motor, and voila, suddenly we're pushing over 1,000 horsepower. And yes, I guess I'm the one that came up with the idea to do it, and I'm very happy I did. I really do think it's one of the big selling points of the cars to have that motor with those turbos on there making that kind of power.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Kudos to you, my friend, for that influence, and I think that's really gonna help this car make headlines. There were over 15 industry leaders in the aftermarket world that really gave it their best to bring this project to life. But you look at this car and it screams Kendall, and I think that was very intentional with the Kendall red exterior. It's got a full custom interior. You were there every step of the way. Describe for us the level of quality and technology that's gone into this build.
I think one of the most important things people need to understand when you're talking about a ground-up build like that is that it isn't just once you've designed the car, once you've made the drawings, and once you have a concept as to where the project is going to go, and you begin to assemble the parts and you start putting the car together, it's not a simple case of, okay, body is on the chassis, engine is in the chassis, suspension, brakes, everything just fits together perfectly. It doesn't happen that way. The Dynacorn body, one of the best in the business, once it is mounted on the chassis, there is a lot of fabrication needed to make all the cut lines perfect, to make all the panels true, all of the interior parts and everything that go into the car. It takes a tremendous amount of labor just to get all those parts and pieces to have that integrity that this car has. And you mentioned the Kendall aspect of the car. It screams Kendall. Well, you need to look at this car very closely to see the little Kendall logos and some of the branding that the Thompson boys incorporated into the build. Some of the trim on the outside, the billet pieces, the interior, the stitching, things like that. Just a lot of forethought and a lot of care went into the execution of the build. And yes, the people at Kendall are very happy with how the Kendall Custom turned out.
Well, as we said, folks can obviously visit titaniumgarage.com for a look at the videos, and even better, at the remaining Mecum auctions on our schedule for the 2021 year, which would be obviously just prior to the sale of the car at Kissimmee 2022. Folks will be able to get a first-hand look at our auctions of this at the Kendall display. And I know, Bill, crowds have just always been very heavy around that car, as people really have enjoyed looking at it. It is a custom, one-of-a-kind build, and I think your involvement and your influence, and also the videos telling the story right from the beginning, have really added a lot to this project. I just want to thank you on behalf of, obviously, of Mecum and Kendall and Curing Kids Cancer, that your involvement has been spot on. Well executed, man.
Thanks, JK. I appreciate that, but I got to tell you, my contributions pale in comparison to the people that actually did the hands-on work here, and the people at Kendall that approved this project. And when I said, "Hey, let's hang turbos on this engine," Julie Wright thought about it for maybe 10 seconds and said, "Yep, I like the idea. Let's go." And of course, that added to the build cost, but one of the best of everything. So yeah, it was great right from the beginning.
Well, now that we know the details on this radical resto mod, let's turn our attention to the charity that it is going to support. Grainne, you started Curing Kids Cancer after your family was personally affected by the disease. Fill us in. How did you turn something so tragic into something that is doing so much good in providing hope for so many kids and families?
Well, thank you, Matt, first of all, for including me in this illustrious company. But, we were quite happily going along with our family of 4 boys. And I had twins in the middle. And when the twins turned 5, one of them, called Killian, was diagnosed with leukemia. And that's one of those things you always think will happen to other people, but doesn't really happen to you. You see it in movies and on television, but, it basically turned our lives upside down. And that was in December of 1999. And he started his treatment, got all the way through till 6 months from the end. And with boys with leukemia, the treatment is actually 3.5 years long, which is an awfully long time when you've got a 5-year-old in treatment. But when he was 6 months from finishing, he relapsed. And at that point, they said that his survival chances dropped from about 90% down to about 40%, and he needed a bone marrow transplant. And we were very blessed in that his brother, his twin, actually happened to be a match, because they were not identical twins. If they had been, they probably both would have had the leukemia. And so we went through with the bone marrow transplant, and the magic number for that is 100 days post-transplant. And we got to 90 days post-transplant, and he relapsed again. And at that point, they told us there were no more options, and that we should go make some memories, which I just wasn't ready to do, and neither was Killian. So I did some research and found a new targeted therapy had been developed. And I said, why can't he have this? Because it was specifically for chemo-resistant leukemia. And they said, oh, it's not in a clinical trial yet. You'd have to get special permission from the FDA to use it. Well, I have red hair for a good reason and saw that as a challenge. So we managed to make contact with the doctors at the National Cancer Institute who had been trying to get this into a clinical trial, and they helped us with the FDA. And a week later, we were up at the National Cancer Institute trying this new targeted therapy. And unfortunately, because Killian was the first child in the world allowed to try this drug, he was only given about half the dose that he really needed because his leukemia was so advanced. But they told us when we were there that they had tested a second generation of this drug on his cancer cells in the lab, and that it would have been 11 times more effective and probably would have saved his life. And I remember thinking, why are you telling us this when it's something our child can't have? But that came to me later down the road. But at the time, I was a bit baffled, I must admit. And unfortunately, we took him home and he passed away 3 weeks later. So a year after that, I decided I couldn't know that there were drugs like that stuck in the lab just because of a lack of funding and not do something to help other children, because I didn't want other families to have to go through what we just went through. So started raising money in 2005, and since then, with the help of Mecum customers, we have raised over $20 million.
Well, and that partnership between Mecum Auctions and Curing Kids Cancer goes back to 2012. And Grainne, fill in the story for listeners. How did that connection come about?
It's an interesting story because I basically know nothing about cars, but somebody donated a motorcycle to the charity, and I said, what the heck do I do with a motorcycle? But it was being built as part of a TV show on the Discovery Channel called Cafe Racer, and the producer said to me, I'll ask Mecum Car Auctions if they will sell it for you. And I said, great, because I don't know what else to do. And so it went to the Kissimmee auction that year, and it was the first time I'd been to a Mecum auction, and I looked around, and the motorcycle sold for $35,000, which was more than it was actually really worth. And then Dana Mecum kicks in another $10,000. So in 90 seconds, literally, we had raised $45,000, and all I did was tell people what we did. I just spoke for a few seconds, and all of a sudden we had $45,000. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a great way to raise money. And I managed to talk to Dana, and I said to him, would you partner with us and do some more stuff? Because, you know, we're trying to save children's lives here. And he said, well, I get asked all the time by charities, why would I just pick one? And I said, well, do you want to make a difference with your philanthropy? And he said, yes, of course I do. And I said, well, you need to pick a cause that you believe in if you really want to make a difference. And I said, that has the added benefit of when other charities come to you, you can say, I have my cause. This is what I really want to support. And he looked at me, and you could see the light bulb ting on in his head. And he was like, okay. And so that was really the beginning of it. He agreed to partner with Curing Kids Cancer. And I explained to him at that point, it was really only me doing it full time and two ladies helping me part time. And we'd already raised quite a lot of money. So he loved the fact that we were small and we weren't spending lots of money on marketing or advertising or anything like that. So and the fact that all the money went to research. So we were looking to help cure the children, and that's what really makes a difference to the whole family.
Well, and those funds are being used far and wide as Curing Kids Cancer has been able to help doctors in 27 states in more than 45 medical facilities. And Grainne, this Kendall Custom has a special connection to your family story, and it all revolves around those Garrett turbochargers.
I know. I couldn't believe it when I looked at the engine of the car and it said Garrett, because Killian's twin, who was his bone marrow donor, is called Garrett. And I thought, okay, well, this is obviously meant to be. It's a little miracle, as I call it.
Well, looking out to the next couple of months, we know the Kendall Custom will be on display in the Kendall booth at the Mecum auctions taking place leading up to Kissimmee, but it will also be on site for a very special fundraising opportunity for Curing Kids Cancer. It's going to be on site at a golf tournament. Grainne, fill us in. What are the details?
Yes, we have one big golf tournament every year that we do in Dallas, Texas, and it's at Lakewood Golf Club, and it's actually hosted by AT&T, and IBM is our main sponsor for it. And they bring in all these different companies, and we've been doing it for 16 years now, and it has raised, I think, over $3 million for us during that time. And everybody really believes in what we do, which is the special part of it. And we always bring in one of our doctors to speak. In fact, this year it is Dr. Miriam Fouladi from Nationwide Children's Hospital, and we are funding an international project with her. Brain tumors have taken over as the leading cause of death for children with cancer from leukemia, and they are very difficult to treat. So she started the very first international collaborative research project, and there are hospitals from all over the world, the top pediatric facilities, and what they're doing is clinical trials on a much bigger scale than is normal, and that has helped to develop new treatments for the children and give them a much better chance of survival. So it's pretty amazing. We're looking forward to hearing from her.
During this whole thing, Grainne, you've been able to draw some deeper meaning on Kendall's slogan of "You get out what you put in." Explain from your perspective how you see this opportunity for people to put something in with this Kendall Custom and what results from that.
Well, I mean, it is an amazing car, but what it's going to do is even more amazing. Putting this car into the auction is going to save the lives of children who wouldn't otherwise survive. We have a treatment that has a 97% success rate on kids who have been on hospice care. And so they are little miracles. And to me, the Kendall car is the Kendall miracle car, because that's exactly what they're putting in, is miraculous treatments, and we're going to get little miracles out of it.
Well, let's wrap up the conversation by getting some final thoughts from Bill. Now we know the details on the special car. We know the details on the special charity. Bill, let's hear from you. How special of an opportunity is it for collectors to purchase a vehicle like this while also contributing to such a great cause?
It's a perfect marriage. It really is. The opportunity to purchase a custom like this doesn't come along every day in the week because, well, the story about the car itself is really fascinating, how Kendall decided to commission this automobile. And it was not originally conceived to be a car that would be sold with proceeds going to curing kids' cancer. This was something that actually evolved after the car itself had pretty much been built. And I think that a car like this probably would be purchased by a collector, somebody, a well-heeled person that would have the ability financially to own this car. And then it would go into a collection, maybe sit in a warehouse, and really not serve very much of a purpose in terms of the common good, you might say. So for the car to eventually be sold at auction to help the people at Curing Kids Cancer in Grainne is a tireless advocate for this charity, as we all know. And for her to be able to watch that car hit the block in Kissimmee in January and to see the kind of response it's going to get from bidders, I know everybody's going to have goosebumps.
Well, Bill and Grainne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, giving us some background to this wonderful project. And, of course, it's all going to pay off. Kissimmee, Florida, the world's largest collector car auction in January 2022. For those people that are interested, you can bid online, you could bid in person, and we invite everybody to come out, take a look at the car, take a look at the videos at titaniumgarage.com, and make your bid at Mecum Kissimmee. Thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Oh, thanks a lot, guys, and thank you, Grainne, for everything you're doing, and we're looking forward to Kissimmee, maybe more so than we have in years past.
I just want to thank Kendall for producing this amazing car, and for everybody who has helped to advertise it and tell people about it, because I think it's really going to be a very special occasion, January 15th at Mecum Kissimmee.
Don't adjust that dial. On the Move, we'll be right back. Our program is proudly presented by Mecum Auctions, the world's largest collector car auctions. Now back to Matt and John.
Well, John, the Mecum Auctions team is coming off of a very successful event in Dallas, Texas. But before we dive into the results and highlights, let's talk about the timing. It was held September 8th through the 11th, with the 11th marking the 20th anniversary since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. And I think it was only fitting for Saturday's national anthem ceremony to include a special spotlight on veterans and first responders and the sacrifice and service that they provide for our country. And John, as someone that was there in the room, what was kind of your sense about what all took place?
You know, it was really interesting and so well done, Matt, that what started out as a very somber day, as we were, all of us, it was on all of our minds, but as how it was displayed, and just the genuine, obviously, concern and the respect for the first responders, and of course all the people that were lost on that fateful day. It really, I think, gave everybody a sense of purpose and a sense of appreciation that sacrifices over the many years of the folks that are in charge of making sure that we're as safe as possible at all times we don't take that lightly. And the auction, of course, that day was a success. It was the single biggest Saturday in Mecum history at Dallas. But like I say, it turned a very serious day into sort of a celebration and appreciation for the freedom that we have. So it set the stage for good success.
Well said, John. And that really is the theme of the event, because the phrase is everything is bigger in Texas, and that really panned out, because let's go back to the genesis of this event, because we had to expand it because of overwhelming demand. What was the original target for this with vehicles, and where do we end up?
Yeah, keep in mind, this was the 11th year Mecum's been in Dallas, so a lot of experience there. But the original target, Matt, was set up at 1,000 entries, pretty aggressive target. But as we know now, Mecum exceeded that, had actually over 1,100 cars over 4 days, and that included 20 and a half hours of television coverage on NBCSN. We had big crowds, we had an unusually fast pace, a lot of energy, and a lot of excitement there, all really leading up to maybe one of the most impressive facts about this particular auction, and that is a stunning 87% sell-through rate. That's incredible.
It is. And what about the total dollar amount, John?
Yeah, and that's just as impressive, Matt. 160% increase from last year's Dallas auction at $36.8 million. And I'll tell you, the top 10 that we're going to run down here in a minute, quite an impressive mix, really showing the variety and the depth of what is becoming what is now a very large regional auction that's really knocking on the door of becoming Mecum's next national level event.
Absolutely. And you took the words out of my mouth, John, because when you look over the top 10 list, not only is it impressive, it really is eclectic. What a wide range of automotive interests. We have everything from classic American iron in the form of a 69 Copo Camaro to late model exotics to resto mod Mustangs. Man, what a wide group. John, let's run through what these highlights were.
Yeah, and what's cool, Matt, before we run down the list, is both of the cars that you and I had picked as our personal favorites. Yours was a 69 Daytona Yellow Copo Camaro. Mine was a 70 Boss 429 Mustang. They are on this top 10 list. But let's start with number 10. That was lot number S130.1. It was a 1999 Shelby Series 1 Roadster, and not just a regular one, but one that Carroll Shelby actually owned. He actually bought it back in 2005, and it brought $189,750. Nice way to kick off that number 10 position. Tell us what your car, which was lot number S116, the 69 Daytona Yellow Copo Camaro, brought with that 427.
Yeah, it sold for a very strong $200,750, John, and really no surprise there, just because of the demand for those vehicles. And then from there, John, we really swing back across the pond to number 8, lot number S193. It's a 2014 Rolls-Royce Wraith, which sold for $203,500. So really impressive.
Yep. At number 7 was a car that we enjoyed seeing on the big screen. One of the screen-used GT40 replicas from the great movie Ford versus Ferrari. It was lot number S126. It brought $203,500. And what I really liked about that, I had a chance to walk around it, is the car has not been cleaned or detailed since its on-screen appearance. Oh. I wonder if the new owner is going to wash it. I hope not.
Yeah, I wonder if some of that official movie grime may be added to some of the high value.
Right.
And then number 6, John, is actually one of my favorite cars. It's a 2002 Bmw Z8 Roadster, a really, I think, an underappreciated late model classic. This one was lot number S95, and that sold for $211,750.
Yeah, that car was stunning, Matt. I did have a chance to see that one as well, under 10,000 original miles. Cadillac from 1957, top of the line. Eldorado Barrettes, one of only 1,800 built, sold for $220,000 in a frenzy of bidding. That was a great, great television segment.
Well, from there, the next two are actually some classic kind of resto mods. We have lot number S133. It's a 1956 Chevrolet 210 Custom. But man, John, this thing is just a full-blown build. It features a 572 cubic inch V8 and a lot of custom work, and rightfully so. It brought $253,000. And then that was followed up with our number 3 on the top 10 list. Lot number S77.1, a 1968 Ford Mustang GT500 CR900C Fastback. Man, that thing had a supercharged 5-liter, and that sold for $335,500. And then coming in number 2 was your Boss 429 Mustang.
Yeah, that is lot number S138, the 1970 Ford Mustang Boss 429 Fastback in grabber green. And this car had actually earned the MCA, that's Mustang Club of America, Trailered Concours Gold. It brought an amazing $357,500. But at the top of the list, Matt, top of the list, lot number S154, top seller, 2019 Lamborghini Aventador SVJ with just over 3,000 miles. Our top seller, $660,000. Any big surprises on the overhaul inventory from your viewpoint, Matt?
Yeah, the thing that jumps out, John, is no trucks on the top 10 list.
Okay.
You know, that's something we regularly see, but clearly the theme for this year's list was on going fast. Now, John, I will say there was one other surprise, and that was lot number S89.1. It's a 2021 Ford Bronco First Edition. Here's what's remarkable. It sold for well over window sticker at $126,500, but I predict this is a sign of things to come because these 2- and 4-door Bronco variants are wildly popular with collectors and enthusiasts. They want to get their hands on them, so I think we're going to be seeing many more Broncos crossing the Mecum Auctions block, bringing these types of prices, if not bigger.
You've been listening to Mecum Presents On the Move, brought to you by State Farm. For more information, visit Mecum.com. And join us again next time as we take you inside the world of muscle and collector cars and more.